You've seen them dominate, but do you truly understand the improbable beginnings of tennis's most iconic sisters? This isn't just a sports story, it's a saga of transformation, impact, and overcoming incredible odds. Challenge your perceptions of where champions are born and witness how two young women from Compton conquered the world. This story starts not on the manicured lawns of Wimbledon or the pristine hard courts of Flushing Meadows, but on the cracked, neglected public courts of Compton, California. Imagine the scene. The nets are sagging, the asphalt is rough and uneven, sometimes littered with debris, maybe even the occasional discarded needle or bullet casing. This was no lush, private tennis academy with ball boys and stringing services. This was raw, gritty, authentic, tucked away in a neighborhood notorious for gang violence and a lack of resources. Most champion tennis players come from privilege, from families who can afford the exclusive country club memberships, the private coaches, the relentless travel. Venus and Serena Williams came from the opposite of the tennis establishment. Their court wasn't a sanctuary, it was a proving ground, a classroom carved out of the chaos, where their parents had to literally run interference against gang members just so the girls could hit ball. This is a visual contrast of two little black girls with beads in their hair, powering serves on a court where no one expected greatness, is the first, essential chapter of their legend. The architect of this impossible dream was their father, Richard Williams. His approach wasn't just unconventional, it was borderline crazy to the outside world. He had no professional tennis background. He taught himself the game by watching instructional videos and reading books. Then, before his daughters were even born, he famously wrote a 78-page plan detailing how he would turn Venus and Serena into the world's greatest tennis players. This wasn't just coaching, it was a mission. Richard's philosophy was centered on a few radical ideas. First, mental toughness and confidence were more important than flawless technique. He instilled an unshakable belief in their destiny. Second, he protected them from the notorious junior circuit, the grinder of hyper-competitive, high-pressure tournaments that burn out young prodigies. He wanted them to have a childhood, to focus on their education. They were homeschooled, and to love the game without the crippling professional pressure. He was their shield, their visionary, and their chief propagandist, constantly telling anyone who would listen that his daughters were going to be number one and number two in the world. People laughed. They dismissed him as a crackpot. But Richard never wavered, and neither did the girl's mother, Oracene Price, who provided the spiritual and technical foundation, often correcting Richard's technique and grounding the girls in humility and faith. From the moment they picked up a racket, the raw talent and competitive fire were undeniable. You see it in the early, grainy footage. Venus, taller and more graceful, a natural athlete with a long, powerful reach, and Serena, the younger, smaller sister, all cold intensity, a firecracker with an explosive power that seemed disproportionate to her size. They didn't just play tennis, they attacked it. Their training was brutal and disciplined, yet intertwined with the rhythm of their family life. Day after day, on those dusty Compton courts, they'd be drilling, hitting hundreds of balls under their father's watchful, unrelenting eye. Their competition was each other. They pushed each other to exhaustion, fueled by a sibling rivalry that was always undercut by deep, mutual love and protection. The competition wasn't just about winning points, it was about proving their father right, about honoring the sacrifice of their parents, about escaping the life they were surrounded by. Their first foray into the professional tennis world was met with immediate, fierce skepticism and outright prejudice. When they first stepped onto the courts of elite tournaments, they stood out. Not just because they were black in an overwhelmingly white sport, but because of their clothes, their hair, their unapologetic confidence, and their sheer power. The tennis world wasn't ready for a black family from Compton to redefine the game. The commentators and established players couldn't figure them out. They were criticized for their unconventional upbringing, their lack of junior tournament experience, and even their father's outspoken nature. The unspoken, ugly truth was that they were challenging a cultural and racial status quo. Their power game was derided as unorthodox or too masculine. They faced racist remarks, unfair treatment, and constant doubt from a world that wanted to keep tennis comfortable and exclusive. The infamous Indian Wells incident in 2001, where Venus withdrew just before a match against Serena, leading to the entire family being booed and subjected to racist taunts, stands as a painful, pivotal example of the hostile environment they had to endure. It showed the depths of the resistance they faced just for showing up and winning. Despite the noise, the wins started piling up, and they began turning heads and proving their mettle in specific, pivotal moments. Venus was the first to make a serious splash. At the 1997 US Open, as an unseeded 17-year-old, she reached the final. The world saw a flash of the future, a towering figure, moving like lightning, unleashing serves with a speed and ferocity that women's tennis had simply never seen before. She didn't win that final, but the message was sent, a change was coming. Then came Serena. In 1999, at the age of 17, she stunned the world by winning the US Open singles title, becoming the first African-American woman in the Open era to win a Grand Slam singles title since Althea Gibson in 1958. It wasn't Venus, the one everyone predicted, but the quiet, intense younger sister who broke through. That victory wasn't just a trophy, it was the validation of Richard's whole crazy plan. It cemented the reality. The Williams sisters were here, and they were a force of nature. The sisters didn't just play tennis, they disrupted it. Their unique style, power, and unapologetic presence were a direct challenge to the traditional tennis aesthetic, which favored finesse, slicing, and a more delicate, baseline-hugging game. The Williams style was all about power and athleticism. Their serves were, and still are, legendary weapons, fast, accurate, and virtually unreturnable in their prime. Their ground strokes were aggressive, hit with a ferocity that drove opponents off the court. They forced women's tennis into a new era, proving that strength, muscle, and power were not just acceptable, but required, to reach the top. They also brought a vibrant, fearless sense of fashion. Venus, with her unique designs and bold colors. Serena, with her catsuits, denim skirts, and boots, outfits that were often controversial but always made a statement, asserting their individuality and injecting a much-needed jolt of personality into the sport. They walked onto the court not just as athletes, but as cultural icons, representing a different kind of beauty and power. The next 2 decades became a relentless chronicle of their ascent to Grand Slam champions. The sheer volume of their titles is staggering. Between them, they have amassed 30 Grand Slam singles titles, Serena with 23, the Open-era record, and Venus with 7. And don't forget the 14 Grand Slam women's doubles titles they won together, remaining undefeated in major doubles finals. The early 2000s saw the era of the Serena Slam, where Serena held all 4 major titles simultaneously. The sight of a Williams sister holding the trophy became a routine part of the tennis calendar. It was a dynasty built on a shared dream and an unimaginable work ethic. Each win chipped away at the old guard, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that the 2 girls from Compton were the best in the world. Central to this saga is their individual rivalry and mutual support. No 2 athletes have ever been so dominant while also being so deeply connected. They faced each other in 9 Grand Slam finals. These matches were often difficult to watch, filled with complicated emotion, the fierce desire to win clashing with the unconditional love of a sister. They have openly discussed the struggle of competing against the one person in the world who understood their journey best. Yet, off the court, their family bond was an unbreakable fortress. They were, and remain, each other's greatest supporter, confidant, and practice partner. When one was struggling with injury or form, the other was always there. They lifted each other up, knowing that the ultimate victory wasn't just for one, but for the entire family. Their success was a collective achievement, a beautiful anomaly in the cutthroat world of solo sports. Their careers are also a masterclass in evolution and innovation. To stay at the top for over 2 decades, an eternity in professional sports, you must change. Venus and Serena both faced career-threatening injuries, health issues like Venus's Sjogren's syndrome and Serena's pulmonary embolism, an inevitable advance of time in younger rivals. They responded by adapting. They tinkered with their technique, refined their strategy, and, most importantly, maintained their supreme fitness. They didn't just rely on their power, they became smarter, more strategic players. They showed the world that longevity in sports is not just about physical endurance, but about mental resilience and the willingness to constantly reinvent yourself. Their impact quickly transcended the sport itself, touching fashion, media, and celebrity culture. They became global megastars, appearing on magazine covers, starring in documentaries, and launching successful business ventures. Serena, in particular, became a fashion icon, a business mogul with her own venture capital firm, Serena Ventures, and a regular on the Met Gala red carpet. Venus launched her own interior design company and a successful activewear line. They shifted the narrative of what a female athlete could be, not just a competitor, but a force in culture, business, and philanthropy. They showed that you don't have to stay in your lane, you can conquer multiple worlds. Crucially, their platform was never wasted. They became powerful voices for equality, social justice, and entrepreneurship. Serena consistently championed equal pay for women in sports and spoke out on issues of racial and gender equality. The two sisters founded the Yeton Price Resource Center in Compton, named after their beloved older half-sister who was tragically killed in a drive-by shooting in 2003, providing vital support to families affected by violence. Their journey became an undeniable symbol of what is possible when opportunity meets preparation, even against the steepest odds. They inspired millions outside of tennis simply by existing and succeeding on their own terms. The most significant ripple effect is how they paved the way for diversity in sports. Before them, black women in professional tennis were a rarity. After them, the gates were irrevocably open. Their success directly inspired a new generation of diverse athletes, especially women of color, who saw in Venus and Serena a reflection of their own potential. They shattered the myth that tennis was only for a certain demographic, making the sport richer and more representative of the world it inhabits. They were the visible, undeniable proof that talent is universal, even if opportunity is not. Their lasting influence on the greatest of all time debate is secure. Serena's 23 major singles titles set the Open-era standard. Their combined professional longevity is a record unto itself. They didn't just win, they forced the entire sport to play catch-up, ushering in the era of power tennis. When tennis history is written, it will be divided into two periods, before the Williams sisters, and after. The ongoing ripple effect of their story is seen every day in aspiring athletes and underrepresented communities. They are living proof that your origin does not dictate your destination. They showed that you can come from nothing, challenge the elite, and not just belong, but dominate. Their journey is a powerful roadmap for anyone fighting for a seat at a table that was never meant for them. This is the unparalleled dynasty of Venus and Serena Williams. It is a story of a father's wild plan, a mother's quiet strength, and two sisters' unmatched drive. They took the hand they were dealt, a broken court in Compton, and transformed it into the launchpad for a global empire. Venus and Serena Williams built a dynasty. What started on the cracked courts of Compton became a global phenomenon. They rewrote tennis history. They rewrote the narrative of possibility. They turned skepticism into triumph. They turned an unexpected beginning into an iconic legacy. Their story isn't just about tennis, it's about belief, about family, about refusing to let circumstances decide your value. It's about two sisters who walked into a sport that didn't expect them, and then left an indelible mark that will last for generations. If you're watching this, consider this. What are your public courts? What are your cracked fences and worn beats? Venus and Serena show that greatness can come from there. And that the odds don't have to win. Your beginnings don't dictate your endings. With belief, discipline, and resilience, you can chart a path no one saw coming. If this story inspired you, do me a favor. Like this video, comment your thoughts, what part of their journey resonated most with you. And if you haven't already, share this story with someone who needs the reminder that any court, any place, can become your launching pad. And of course, subscribe for more real stories of challenge, triumph, and transformation.